Well, if we're honest about this could be the understatement of the week. State-owned enterprises still remain a concern, is the word being used. The Public Enterprises Department has conceded to this as it appeared before the Portfolio Committee in Parliament yesterday. So what exactly was said and how are we going to try and get to the bottom of these concerns? Well, I'm joined, always a pleasure, by Khaya Magaxa, Portfolio Committee Chair on Public Enterprises, joining us. Khaya, good morning to you. It's always good to have you on eNCA. I know there's a lot to go through. We won't have all morning, of course. Just briefly bring us up to speed. What did the Public Enterprises Department actually say about our SoEs? I imagine we spoke about Eskom and we spoke about Madupi, etc. What did they have to say?
Well, the department yesterday provided us with a brief synopsis of what is currently happening, including the development at Eskom, where in Madupi there was some kind of a fire and an incident that is currently under investigation. Secondly, we were brief about the problems in Denel, the financial problems actually, that culminated to Denel being unable to pay workers, and the committee has raised its concern about that, including asking the department to please make quick interventions with the treasury in order to deal with that kind of a situation. And we also went as far as SAA development, and the department has tried to brief us on those developments. By the way, the department was just giving us a snippet of the problems that are there and the mechanism that they are putting in place in order to resolve them. However, next week we'll be meeting, as from next week, we'll be meeting each and every entity so that they are account to us direction on operations and performances.
Were you happy with the responses? I know you say next week, Khaya, you're going to get into more detail, you're going to get into the minutiae of what is happening at each SOE. But from yesterday, as the chair, were you happy with the responses that you were getting?
Well, insofar as department, of course, we were comfortable with the information, but of course, we know there are limitations. That's why we will be getting details from each and every entity when we meet them beginning of next week on Wednesday. And then that's where then we'll be in a position to engage them directly on our dissatisfaction and our kind of reservation about the problems and developments there.
So we've just spoken about Eskom. Khaya, you also mentioned SAA, obviously a major problem for those involved with the airline. Another one that I'm sure got brought up as well, help me understand what got mentioned about Denel getting a bit messy. What was the response to Denel and their crisis at the moment?
Well, what concerns us most about Denel is the non-payment of the staff, and those are families, and that problem has been there for quite some time. However, we do appreciate the damage that has been created on Denel by the previous administration. We do appreciate the fact that Denel is a victim of a state capture. Also, Denel is experiencing problems of market of its own products, which culminated to this kind of a situation we find ourselves in. A process that has been exacerbated by COVID-19. We do appreciate it. However, we don't think that Treasury particularly is doing enough in order to assist these entities to get out of the quagmire they are in. In fact, we really have serious problem with that. We hope that next week when Denel came to meet with us, such concerns will be raised. Will be dealt with.
Khaya, it's the second time you've mentioned Treasury in the short time we've been chatting. Help those of us who don't quite understand how these portfolio committees work. How do you get Treasury to assist these various SOEs? Just in the last 2 minutes I have with you, if you could, how does that work? What do you need to give to Treasury in order for them to act on your recommendations? How does it work?
Well, the reality of the situation is that the current state of these entities which have been seriously squandered through state capture are almost ill. We know that they are in some kind of ICU financially. Therefore, because at the end of the day, these are the state-owned entities that are supposed to assist our own government and state as a developmental state so that they can be able to improve the quality of services to the people. We know that the current state we have is a state that assists socially in terms of health. We want free education, we want free health system, and so on. Therefore, if a state is not capacitated enough to be able to provide those, we won't be able to talk about development state. Hence, we expect the treasurer, which is the people who are having our purse as a nation today, to find way of helping these entities, knowing for a fact how did we get to where we are today.
I appreciate your time. I actually am going to use that line in future. Financial ICU is the way it's being described. Khaya Magaxa, thank you very much indeed for taking the time to speak to us. Following up again next week with all of these SEOs, Eskom, SAA, Denel. Yesterday, just touching base with them, if you will, about the underlying problems. Next week, they get into the details of that. He is the chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Public Enterprises.